Amazingly, this lake of seawater is meters above sea level.
この裏にね、川があるんですよ。排水堀ってね。それで、通常はね、ほとんど水がないくらいなんですよ。通常は。ところが、津波後ね、1波目は来なかったんだけど、2波目あたりからやっぱり登り始めてね。
夜のうちに登ったんだね。
そして夜のうちに登ってきてね、知らないてるうちにもうここに水に乗っていたわけです。次の日からね。それからずっと引かないでそのままなってんだね。もう私たちも先代からここに住んでいないともうないの。私だけでも70年なんだけど、こういうこと初めて。70年以上なんだけどね。初めてだね、こういうこと。
The locals here fear that as the waters recede, it will expose bodies swept all the way up from the coast. Travelling north, at first the town of Ofanatu seemed untouched.
Look over there, those houses look undamaged. They've got power and everything here. It's just so strange.
Closer to the shore, it was a different story.
And as if Ofanatu didn't have enough problems, scientists reckon that this whole area, this region, has subsided well over a metre. And in the next couple of days, the region is also expecting the highest tides of the year. The sea is some 500 metres down there, and yet up here we have this. It's a remarkable sight by any standards, a huge tug which has been brought all the way up here by the tsunami. And what's remarkable about it, or what's even more remarkable about it, is that what it says about the size of the tsunami. Because the Japan Meteorological Center have just produced provisional estimates saying that the tsunami that hit this region was about 3.5 metres high. Now we're 7-8 metres above sea level here, and even given the surge, the fact that it could bring that all the way up here does suggest that the tsunami here was a lot higher than 3.5 metres.
Even amidst such chaos, this seems strange. Boats, trucks and cars were dumped on top of buildings, much higher than the recorded height of the wave.
That happens because as the water's pushing through restricted areas like the streets of towns and villages, it's being effectively funneled. And the water's got to go somewhere, and so it goes up as it's squeezed and funneled and pushes material, pushes cars onto roofs, sometimes as high as 50 feet. So in areas, the impact of this will be even greater, particularly where you get narrow streets.
Once the wave starts to pick up part of a town, the warehouses along the dock, the debris and all that, then it becomes more like a glacier. You know, it's a moving wall of debris, and the more mass it has, the more power it has as it comes in. It doesn't really look like water beyond some point. It looks like the entire town is flowing in, and it is. So all the mass of all the buildings, cars, refrigerators, and everything that's in that wall, it's essentially a debris glacier at that point, and it just keeps coming in.
This is Minami Sanriku, a town that was wiped off the map. "95% of the buildings destroyed. Over 10,000 people, half the population missing.
This place, Minami Sanluko, probably symbolizes the tragedy more than anywhere. An entire town wiped out by the force of nature.
It's almost difficult to imagine one's thoughts as one sees this coming towards you. And as it hits the coast, it's then picking up all the debris, it's picking up buildings, cars and things, and you then end up with this sort of really quite horrific mass moving through towns, villages, across fields, causing complete destruction.
I mean, it would be bad enough if it was only water, but because it's full of cars and you can't swim against it or flow with it or do anything, you're just like in front of a bulldozer of moving the entire town.
It's funny that when you hear that sound of an ambulance, it kind of actually gives you hope that they might have found somebody alive. Although that must be happening fewer and fewer times between. Anyone who did survive and was trapped would almost certainly have died of hypothermia by now.
At the town of Rikuzen Takata, rescue workers hunt for survivors and discover the dead.
When they find a body, they put a large stick in the ground with a flag attached to it so that it can be recovered later. It's a fairly gruesome and sad task. In fact, they're not just collecting bodies, they're also collecting personal mementos as well, which they find, like this. I'm afraid what we have here is more bodies waiting to be taken away.
Even now, the tsunami was not finished with Japan. Back at the Fukushima power plant, what started as a failed generator was fast becoming the biggest nuclear crisis since Chernobyl.
We'll keep the windows closed and I'll put on a mask.
Scientists have already gathered more data from Japan's earthquake and tsunami than from any other disaster in history. As Professor Roger Billam returns to Tokyo from his aerial survey, the city's vulnerability becomes all too clear.
There are 30 million people within about 2 meters of sea level, and a tsunami here, of course, would be absolutely devastating.
Suddenly, a problem.
We had a big earthquake just now, so...
Really?
Yeah.
We've just learned from the ground that there was an earthquake that damaged the heliport. They're checking for damage right now. We don't know how big the earthquake was, but it was obviously a very nearby aftershock.
A massive aftershock has hit Tokyo, magnitude 6.2. In the week that followed the main quake, there were over 500 aftershocks along the fault. This is the actual data from seismometers around Japan. The larger the circle, the bigger the aftershock.
The shaking is now stopped, so I'll just continue landing.
Finally, Billam's helicopter is given the all-clear to land. Even at the heliport in Tokyo, the damage is plain to see.
I've noticed that the tarmac here, which should be beautifully dark everywhere, in fact stained white in places, and you can see that in fact sand has come out of this crack, and there's another one over there, another one over there. We're very close to the shoreline, and the lurching motion of the ground during the earthquake has caused the subsurface liquefied sands to come belching out on the top.